And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Always Pressing PGA DFS podcast. This week, we will be previewing the Greenbrier Classic, this year known as the Military Tribute at the Greenbrier Classic. In order to do so, I'll have my usual co-host, Jesse. You can find him on Twitter at DFS Golf Gods. Jesse, how you doing, man?
Doing well. Good to be here again.
Good times, good times. And we'll have a reoccurring guest. You've heard him before. You find his work on thesportsdegens.com. He's on Twitter at alldayevery365. Rob Trayah, how we doing, man?
Good. How's it going? Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Filling in for Buck again.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. It's good to have you, as always. And be a fun little field this week and see what we got going here at the Greenbrier. But before we get to the Greenbrier, let's talk about one thing that made me so happy yesterday. And if anybody followed my timeline, you knew how happy I was. But Francisco Molinari, he got it done. First PGA Tour win, and he got it done in blazing fashion. Smoked the field on Sunday. Any thoughts on it, Rob?
It was pretty impressive, to say the least. I think I was reading a stat today from Mark Brody, who is the strokes gained connoisseur, and he was saying that if Molinari was almost dead last in putting, even though he wasn't, he still would have beat the field by like 4 shots, which is pretty incredible. It seemed like everything was inside 10 feet all day yesterday, and leave it to Francesco too to win the last time that it's going to be the Quicken Loans there in Washington D.C. before it goes to Detroit. So he'll never be able to really defend his title.
Oh, it's typical Molinari fashion, and it's always been the saying on this show is, tee to green, one of the best in the world. But putting is always a disaster. And I know, Jesse, you kept telling yourself last week you couldn't do it. And I told you can play Molly. It's okay. You can play him. Just embrace Molinari. Well, Butch had a Webb win this year. You've had PC win, and I've had Molly win. This is a year for the Always Pressing pod. What's your thoughts on the weekend's performance?
Yeah, it was difficult to stomach paying that much for Francisco. But if you did, obviously – way ahead of everybody else because he outscored the field by quite a bit. Lost strokes one round putting. That was the first round. And then he was 2 shots better on average tee to green in every round. So, I mean, he put on a clinic. It was impressive to say the least. I was playing golf and I opened up the scoreboard toward the end of our round and he was up by 7. And it shocked me. But he played well.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. I was out yesterday as well, but every time checking in on the scores and seeing my boy Molinari just doing work, I was like, I'm not even mad anymore. Like, this is just an ass kicking of epic proportion. So, like at first, I'm thinking about my lineup. I have Hostler and Gay at the top to start the day, and then it didn't even matter how well they would have played. Pretty much, it was over. Before we get into that, a little controversy. I did want to mention something. I was reading a Roto-World article today, just because it was highlighting Molinari stuff. So I had to get one last drink of this great water before we move on. Hey. But there's a couple stats I didn't have to do really with Molly that made it interesting to me. There's a couple win stats that stood out, and it was along the lines of 21 of 35 winners this season had a top 25 finish the prior week. So keep that in mind when you're looking at guys. 11 of 35 are top 10 guys. Molinari took 1 week off after his T25 at the U.S. Open. He's a 24th straight winner this season with 0 or 1 week off prior to their win. So guys with long layoffs have not done well their first time back. So little things to keep in mind as we're building a bigger sample size this season. Then again, it's golf. Anything can happen. So take all that with a grain of salt. Jesse, why don't you give us a little insight? Because I read up on it. Joel Dahmen, he made some friends this weekend and maybe a few more enemies.
Well, first of all, somebody pulled like an old tweet of his where he's talking about Mr. Woods hitting a driver, right? Isn't that what happened, Rob? Did you see that tweet?
Yeah, I saw that.
But it was like an old tweet or something. Anyways, so then he comes back last night and says basically that Sung Kang cheated, which is in the golf world is a very derogatory term, probably about the worst thing you can possibly call somebody is a cheater. And basically they had to let somebody play through. So somebody on Twitter asked him, he responded, just was pretty blunt about it, explained it a little bit better, and basically said that there was little bit of a difference in opinion of where Kane went into a hazard. He thought it was about 200 yards back. Kane ended up dropping it a whole lot closer to the green, and said he was a cheater. And that's bold. That's pretty harsh when you call somebody a cheater in golf. So yeah, he put his name out there. That's for sure.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Rob?
It's pretty interesting. I mean, there always seems to be the line of interpretation between guys, and it seemed like Dahlman pled his case pretty badly, even to the rules official, who obviously he didn't see anything, so you kind of have to go by each guy's name. It seems like more and more of it's coming out now too. It looked like the person who was actually doing the shot link data for it was on Dahlman's side as well.
Oh wow!
And oddly enough, Willie of Golflandia is going to have Dahlman's caddy on tonight to the new episode. So there's going to be a lot out there. And I mean, that's a huge payday for Song Kang. I think he came in, third?
Yep.
And he goes to the British now. So you're not going to see him for a couple of weeks. But those are some big accusations, as well as, repercussions too, because that probably screwed a couple people too.
Yeah, and that's a big part there. Like you said, he finished third. That penalty could have taken him out of the top 5, and I believe top 5 automatically gets into the Open, which for many of these guys, and you looked at that leaderboard, it was some web.comers and some just long time straggling around PGA guys that would gladly take entry into the Open. So it's that, and then you guys both said it, and Jesse said it, using the word cheat, especially in the game of golf, can be very, very touchy. Like, that's one of those words. You can say a lot of people, you can call people names, you can say a lot of things. Calling them a cheater,
yeah,
that's towing a line to some people, especially like the old school of the old school. So it'll be real interesting to see how that plays out. It's interesting that I didn't see the part like you were saying, Rob, where now the Strot Tractor person was saying it was different. I'm like, oh, this is going to get better and better, like you said. So it's something to keep an eye on. I have a feeling we might talk about this one some more in the future.
Yep.
Last thing I want to mention real quick before we get on to a recap of the weekend of ownerships. I remember we talked last week, and it was everywhere you read, listened, whatever you did. This was a tough course. You can't beat this course. You're going to score 7 or 8 under, and you're going to win. Well, Molinari scored 21. He scored 8 on Sunday. Any takeaways, Rob, on this course? Was it just kind of a fluky weekend, or do you think they maybe softened things up after last year?
I think it probably had more to do with the weather. I think after what happened at the Open and seeing how the USGA handled how like warm weather and bigger winds kind of affected the score there. I knew they were in track for 100-degree days. So some of the pins yesterday, like just watching the round, they didn't seem as difficult. I mean, Molinari was putting it, 5-10 feet away anyways, but it seemed like it was set up to be protective of bad weather or, something that could kind of bake up the course. So I think that kind of just cascaded over the whole week. And, as soon as guys were going out early on Thursday and putting up low numbers after rain or whatever, it didn't seem like it was going to be anywhere near the course that they had last year.
What about you, Jesse?
Yeah, I think the wind last year was a lot stronger than it was this year as well, and had a little bit more rain maybe too. I don't know, but either way, they definitely didn't make it as difficult. The rough might have been cut down a little bit as well. I'm not sure exactly. I didn't watch a whole lot of it on the weekend, so I'm not 100% sure. But I kept expecting the scores to get worse, and Molinari tripled, the winning score of last year. So there's obviously a lot of changes that they made. So whatever.
And you mentioned tripling the score right there. Why don't you take us into the fan share kind of ownership recap of the week that you do over there, kind of cliff notes, because I know that was a part of your article.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that was. It baffles me that score can go from 7 to 21, but either way, yeah. So last week, Tiger Woods was your most tagged golfer, and I think that maybe had something to do with his putter. Obviously, he switched to a new putter last week and actually gained shots on the green three out of 4 rounds. Something to keep in mind moving forward. But for the 3rd straight week as well, the top tag golfer was under 20% owned. Another kind of interesting trend there. Other than that, I mean, it was just such a chalky week. It was just it was bad. I mean, there's only 120 golfers to begin with. All 10 of the top tag golfers made the cut. 19 out of the 20 top tag golfers on Fanshear made the cut. Second week in a row that the winner's tag rank was third. Doesn't matter a whole heck of a lot. I mean, it was just such a chalky week. It was annoying, and to be honest with you, I'm ready to move on.
Well, we shall do that. Let's move on to, when you said 30% plus 6 of 6, it was pretty bad. Yeah. But let's move on to this week's edition of the military tribute at the Greenbrier Classic. Why don't you give us a little past event history, and then I'll break us into a course preview.
Sure. So last year, Xander Schauffele won by one shot over Robert Trayah. He shot 14 under. 2016, the term was actually canceled due to a massive flood that they had there. So last year was like the first year back. There wasn't a whole lot of changes to the course. Just they had to rebuild some of the greens. But either way, before that, Danny Lee was a past winner in 2015. Shot 13 under. Angel Cabrera 16 under in 2014. Other winners: Jonas Blix, Ted Potter Jr., Scott Stallings, and Stuart Appleby. I mean, it's just such a mixed bag of winners here. It's crazy, but generally speaking, you're going to be in the mid-teens with a winning score.
Yeah, and that'll lead me into the course preview, and it kind of makes sense because you look at this course, it's another par 70, a little less than 7,300 yards. It's called the Old White at TPC, and before people start claiming racist, it's because there's a big white, hotel on the property they call the Old White. I want to clarify that because that was the first thing I thought of when I saw that. I'm like, oh, great, we're in West Virginia. The name. No, it's not what it is. It's the building on the property. It's like the staple of the place. I want to clarify that right out the gate. But it's in the foothills of West Virginia. Last year was the 17th toughest course on the PGA Tour, which was pretty interesting to me, and it could be because of the changes the course has made. You mentioned the flooding in 2016. We did everything: the fairways, the greens, the fescues around the greens, everything got redone. But still a very scoreable course if you do it right. It's kind of a very undulating course in the fairways all the way to the green. This would be the perfect Bryson DeChambeau course. It's the name that came to mind. It's a risk-reward kind of strategic placement course where you can bomb it if you want because the fairways are super wide and not super penalizing. But you also, the guys with 3 woods can be very, very good because you're playing at an elevation close to 2,000 feet, so the ball is going to fly a little farther than you would think. You have 2 par 5s, 2 of the easiest scoring holes on the course. If you don't birdie those, you really need to do some damage elsewhere because those are going to be your money makers for sure. Par 3s are the par 3s, but when you go to the par 4s, that's where it's going to be make or break time. They range from 385 yards to 492 yards. Some are super easy to score on. Some are much, much more difficult. So you want to kind of worry about your approach, get in there, give yourself chances at birdies, to say the least. Other than that, there's not a ton of – there's like 3 or 4 holes with water on them, but they really don't come into play unless you're just spraying it like crazy. Unless you want to be on the next no laying up, torch sauce deal, you won't find the water. But other than that, we should see some scoring, like you said, low teens, mid-teens. It's just, guys stay out of trouble, which there really isn't a ton of unless you're really off. So should be a fun one in West Virginia. We real quick, we do have some weather to mention. Usually we kind of skip over it if it's not too bad. They're saying Friday afternoonish, pretty good chances of weather, so keep that in mind. Rob, do you ever really focus on AM, PM, PM, AM waves?
You have to in extreme circumstances. I know the Open this year, there was a lot to deal with AM, PM, and then it ended up being the opposite. I think for more majors, I think it's different because I think the setups usually tend to be a lot harder. I think you just got to kind of spray and pray almost when it comes to these other tournaments like the Greenbrier and just kind of hope, unless it's like super high-end winds. I don't really care about the rain. I don't really care about 10 to 15 mile an hour winds or gusts. It's more about those 20 to 30 mile an hour gusts. At that point, that's where you kind of have to start taking into account.
I like it. Jesse, what are some of the key stats you'll be targeting this week at the Greenbrier?
I'm just like my cookie cutter. My big thing is always greens and regulation, but looking at more driving distance this week versus accuracy. And instead of like last week, I was looking at more of a bogey avoidance, but this week it'll just be birdie score as far as birdie or better. And then, there's obviously a little bit of course history here you can use as well. And par 4 scoring, I think is important as well, too, just because we're in another par 70 here.
What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I'm along the same lines. I think I'll probably look more towards DK points rather than birdie or better, just because I think there's opportunities out there for 1 or 2 eagles. I saw there was a pretty high correlation between winners on actually par 5 scoring too. And I know you were mentioning about the par 3s being longer in distance. Everything's kind of over 200 yards. So looking at proximity from over 200 as well.
Yeah, no, I think par 5 scoring for sure. Birdie or betters, par 4 scoring will be really big, and then some approach, because if they have shots at birdies, they're going to be just fine this week. Just keep it simple this way. I think they should just go with the KISS method out there. Keep it simple, stupid, and they will find themselves in very promising situations out here. By the sounds of things, by what I'm reading, it seems pretty straightforward. But again, it's golf. Real quick before we get into the DraftKings picks, let me give you a little fan share info for you. At this event last year, the most tagged players that are in the field this year: Tony Finau, Bill Haas, Danny Lee, Stuart Sink, Lingmerth, Kisner, Simpson, Keegan Bradley, Gary Woodland, and Patrick Reed. They're not in the field this year. Those are the top 10 tags last year. It's kind of funny when you look back on FanShare's tags last year and look at what they are this year, how much the industry has grown, because Finau led the way at 44 tags. Jesse, you do a weekly tag recap. What's 44 usually get you roughly these days?
44
tags. Tags. It's like 10th, 11th, 12th on a week.
It's got to be up there. It's definitely inside the top 20. I would say probably close to top 10. I mean, I'm thinking on a normal week it's about 60, 65 to 70 for the overall tag, like the top tag golfer.
Yeah, so it's definitely grown quite a bit. But at the Greenbrier last year, it kind of makes sense based on who won and how the finishes were. But Xander led the way to 117 DraftKings points. He's the 17th highest tagged player in the tournament. 47th tagged Streb finished second in DraftKings. He had the 26th tag Lugmark, 70th tag Kraft, 12th Henley. Finau was the first tag. He had 92 points. He had the 100th tagged player Ryan Blom, had 7th in points. 32 Taylor, 23 Holmes, and 6 Simpson. So only 2 guys in the top 10 made it in top 10 in DraftKings scoring. So keep that in mind when you're picking on this week. And then just like we like to do, kind of current form coming into the field. In the last 3 events for players that are in the Greenbrier Classic, Ryan Armour leads the way with averaging 84 DraftKings points per start. Annabon Lahiri, JB Holmes, Russell Henley, Ryan Harmon, Ryan Blom, Joaquin Neiman, Philip Mickelson, Kevin Streelman, and Brandon Harkins. So a little bit of who's who and who's who, literally who. So will be an interesting week as expected.
To go back to what you were talking about, 44 actually would have been second last week.
Oh, wow. Okay, because I'm used to hearing like 60s and a a bunch of
I think I was maybe just thinking majors, or else just last week and this week are just like nobody gives a shit.
That could very well be the point. All right, let's get into the DraftKings picks for the week. We'll start in the 10K and above. We got Tony Finau at 11.5, Phil Mickelson at 11.2, Watson at 11,000, Simpson at 10.7, Henley at 10.4, Schauffele at 10.2. Remember also, we didn't really mention it, there's a handful of these guys like Simpson and Mickelson and Bubba that actually have places on this venue. They have houses and everything, so keep that in mind. But Rob, kick us off with some guys in the 10K and above that you're looking at this week.
Yeah, so I'll be Jesse's favorite. I'll be the chalk guy. I would say Russell Henley at 10,400 would be the guy that I'm going to look at above that. Outside of him, it'd be Finau. I'd probably skip all the guys with the houses on the course. I think they're just there because of that, and maybe getting a little falconry in. But I think Finau, he has the course history. He plays well here. He's actually number 1 in strokes gained for par 5 for me, playing well recently. And then Henley, obviously, he played well at the Open. He's been on a really good run of form lately at the Travelers. I mean, he struggled on the weekend at the U.S. Open, but leading it for almost 2 days is pretty good. Came in 6th of the Travelers, didn't have a round under or over 70 or over par. approach games there right now. His big problem was always off the tee, and he gained strokes at the Travelers, almost 3 strokes. So I think he's probably going to be the chalkiest guy in this range just because of what form, like you were just saying, about how guys that have finished in the top 10 and playing well recently are kind of on the up and up. And, he's got really good course history in terms of playing here. The last 2 times I've had the tournament, he's finished. So he's got kind of all the check marks for me.
No, I like that a lot. Who you looking at up here, Jesse?
Yeah, this field is awful, right? So I think that using some of these guys up here who have the best chance to win and or score DK points is going to be optimal. So Tony Finau's number 1 on my model. I've already seen a lot of chatter about him, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Last week with Ricky Fowler, he was a top price guy on the slate, and he was also like one of the highest owned guys on the slate as well. But I don't know that. I mean, Tony's usually pretty popular, so I don't know that it'll affect him. But I mean, he's hard to pass up. Second on my list would probably be Phil at 11-2. He can win, I think, just about any week at this point. And obviously, he's getting ready for another major, which he has won before as well too. So, other than that, Russell Henley, I think, is playable. I think Bubba's playable, Webb's playable. Xander's interesting to me because his form coming in isn't that great, but obviously he's a winner last year. 6th of the U.S. Open, but he missed the cut at the Travelers Championship. And he's got the, kind of defending champion narrative. I don't know if that will affect his ownership much, but I don't mind Xander. I'll probably play a lot of Tony this week, though.
Yeah, I do like Tony in that angle. And when we get to lower pricing, there's a lot of cheapies down there you can at least take gambles at. I'm not saying go play the $6,300 guys, but we're actually in the $6,300 range this week, which is crazy. But yeah, Finau hasn't played, but the guys I'm looking at, I do like Bubba Watson just because that form he's in right now. And I agree with what Rob said is I think he might be there just to party and enjoy the scenes, which does kind of worry me. At the same time, Bubba, remember he was at Riviera and he went and played in the All-Star tournament, the Celebrity All-Star game, and still came back and finished pretty darn good there from what I remember. So, so Bubba at 11 is very, very interesting to me. And the other guy I do like is Henley. And I think he's going to be chalky, like you said, at 10-4. Might be one of those just a field this size, differentiate elsewhere. Take the guy you think's got a shot to play really well, finish very high, like you said. He's finished 5th or better in both of the last 2 times he's played at this course. And he's coming in just great form. So it's definitely a guy I can look at up top in the 10K and above is Russell Henley and Bubba Watson. For the 9K range, we got 5 golfers to choose from. Joaquin Niemann at 9,700, Brian Harman at 95, Chucky Three Sticks at 93, Jimmy Walker at 91, and JB Holmes down $1,000 from last week to 9,000. Jesse, who are you looking at in the 9Ks?
I do like Niemann quite a bit. At 97, I think that price will scare enough people off for him to not be like I fully expect him to be really, really chalky last week, and he wasn't, and I was surprised by that. But either way, I'm a big fan this week, so I'm not worried about the ownership on him this week. I think Harmon's playable. Charles Howell's playable as well. JB's interesting because, like you said, discounted price this week, has pretty good course history, hasn't finished outside the top 27 in the last 4 times he's played here, finished 9th here last year, and he missed, but of course had the 2nd and the 3rd before that. So I think from like a ownership potential bounce back perspective, JB could be a decent play. Jimmy Walker, I played way too much of him last week, and I think him and his wife stayed up too late Thursday night trolling people and wore themselves out, probably on Twitter. So I'm on the fade of Jimmy Walker. So he'll probably play well.
Nice. Yeah, he got Rob.
I'm all about Chucky 3 Sticks again. The guy is easily in the best form of his career. He just continues to make cuts, and at 9,300, I think it's worth it. Of course, the 1 week I picked Niemann and one and done's and playing the most, he misses a cut. But last year, he came in as an AM last year, and just had a bad Saturday round, came in 29th, but he was up at the top of the leaderboard, and you can't go wrong with the recency. 17th last week, his 6th at the Memorial. pretty much only struggles around the green, and that's kind of diluted here. It's not really that big of a deal, so it's definitely an area to kind of look at. I definitely am not going to touch Jimmy. I think you're right, Jesse. I think there's a little something else going on there, and I think he hit his peak already kind of this year, as far as where the tour is in the States. But I think you're right about Holmes. A lot of people are going to be off him, $1,000 cheaper. He's got all the course history, and I think if you're going to go somewhere in the 9K range to pivot off of like a Neiman, I think you're going to have to look at JB.
Yeah, I agree with you guys on Neiman. I think this $9,700 price tag makes him very, very appealing based on ownership last week and how well he's been playing. But and I love Chucky 3-Sticks. He was my one and done last week. I play him. He's like almost my Stuart Sink spirit animal. Like he's just a guy when he's locked in, he's a cut machine. I think he's a cash game lock. You need to play him in cash games. Play him there. But I just think he's a really good play at that price point. If I need to pivot off of those two, though, I'm going to look a lot harder at Brian Harman at 9,500. So I think if there is an ownership deal here, people will go to Hal or Neiman. You can get Harman at a low ownership. You know, he had that hot start, and I think he just needed a break. He kind of wore himself out. He's been coming back playing well. 3 straight made cuts, a T6 last time out. He hasn't played here in 4 years where he missed the cut, but he's made 2 or 3 cuts here. At this price tag of $9,500, I think he's a guy that can shape some shots, doesn't have to bomb it if he doesn't want to, and plays really well around the greens. So I think Harman at 9,500 could be a sneakier play in the 9K range if you can get sneaky within 5 guys, which you probably can't. But I think Harman could be an interesting play. Let's get into the 8K range where we got about 9 guys to choose from here. And I'll kick us off on this one. Ryan Moore at $8,900 came in really good form his last tournament and missed the cut. And I know we've talked about him quite a bit. And when it comes to tee to green approach, this guy is locked in with his ball striking abilities. So at $8,900, you might get Ryan Moore at some low ownership, and he's a guy when he was making cuts recently was putting in some really really solid finishes. So Ryan Moore is on my list of guys in the 8K range. Kevin Streelman, a guy just kind of like Brian Harman, who was on fire to start the year, then kind of faded away. He's back again, 4 straight made cuts, T32 last time out. He's finished T29 here last year. At $8,600, you could do a lot worse in a field like this. In a diluted field like this, Streelman can contend with these guys, so I don't mind him at $8,600. Keegan Bradley, same kind of deal as Streelman, maybe a little more tilting than Streelman, but at $8,500, I do like some Bradley. One of my favorite plays in this range is Anibon Lahiri at $8,300. I've been mentioning him every week. Haven't really played him enough, but he keeps getting it done on these par 70 courses. A T13 last week, a T9 the week before. He's made 15 or 19 cuts this year. It's his first time here. A little worrisome, but he's been proving it lately at courses he's not really familiar with and playing really, really well. So Lahiri at $8,300, I think it's a little too cheap for the way he's been playing in a field of this stature. And then the last guy, I was all over him last week. I was really, really pumped on him last week. I'll be on him again this week. I'm kind of scared now that people might figure out who he is. But Brian Gay at $8,100 is playing outstanding golf. He's been T20 or better in 4 of his last 5 tournaments. He hasn't fared well here. He did make the cut last time out, but he's 1 for 6 on cuts made at this tournament, so hopefully it's not a tournament thing. But T8 last weekend where he fell apart on Sunday. Going into Sunday, he was right near the top of the leaderboard. Could have easily put together a big finish. Probably not catching Molinari the way he finished, but could have put together a better finish than he had at T8. So I like this 8K range as usual, and I'll be going around a lot of Lahiri and Gay and then maybe some guys higher up. Jesse, who do you like in the 8Ks?
Yeah, I like the Ryan Moore call. Streelman, I don't mind him at all at $8,600. It's not a bad price whatsoever. I don't know what happened to him on Sunday this past. I think him and Jamie Lovemark probably went out together and had a few too many cocktails. Streelman shot 76 and Lovemark shot 82. Just completely smashed any hopes I had of cashing anything. So that was fun. Keegan, obviously, tee to green game is there. Will the putter be there, or some semblance of a putter, or a half-ass putter? I don't know. I like Brian. I don't mind Brian Gay at all at $8,100. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's probably Ryan Moore and Streelman, the top 2. I think Keegan is definitely playable. He shouldn't miss the cut here, but he could go full Keegan. And Brian Gay is definitely playable. But other than that, I mean, it's not a huge fan of this region.
Okay, who do you like down here, Rob?
Yeah, I would say one guy we didn't talk about, and I know he kind of sucks off the tee, is Kevin Na, but he's got really good course history here, and he's decent enough putter on bent grass too. He's 16th in this field. I love Keegan this week. I know that is super scary to say.
Terrifying.
He's just so good off the tee at places like this, and he's so good from with his long irons. Yeah, his putter's atrocious, but if you kind of look at the recent winners, like this course kind of dilutes a little bit of the thing, even though it's one of those places that if someone can get really hot, like he could kind of make your lineups look really good. And Airbnb, like you said, Lahiri, I was on him 2 weeks ago and he got hot. He makes a ton of birdies, so he scores a ton of points, even if he makes a cut and he throws up 68s. He's probably got like 6 or 7 birdies in there. So he's one of those guys, I think, at 8,300. If you're looking to score a lot of points, he's definitely a guy that you got to lean on.
No, that's a great point. He was one of the guys in the top 10 in the last 3 events, DraftKings scoring wise. So definitely a guy to look at there. One guy none of us mentioned, and it could be because he's in just horrific form. He hasn't fared well at this course. I just want to ask you guys, we can start with Rob and go to Jesse. I'm not going to play him, but Kevin Kisner's only $8,000. This is a guy earlier this year we've had in the 5 digits. We've seen him torch courses. He's in a funk, but at 8K, do you think that's value in a GPP, Rob?
Probably. I don't know what happened after the match play where he made the final. He went nuts that whole weekend. He was hitting everything putting. I mean, those stats don't show up at all in like Fantasy National, but 7th at RBC Heritage. I think he was close to making the cut at the U.S. Open, but his approach game has gone like nowhere. It's costing him dearly. And, at 8K, I think he's played well here at a time. Yeah, he had a second back in 2015. He was terrible last year. So I think if you're going to, throw in 1 or 2 lineups with him in it, I don't see it being bad. I think, especially with the rest of the 8K range, there's a lot of guys that it can kind of get diluted. I think there's going to be, a lot of ownership towards Keegs, towards Streelman, who had a good week last week, and probably Ryan Moore, considering he is probably the best of the 8Ks.
What about you, Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, I probably won't play him, but I mean, from like a GPP ownership perspective, potential, like his pedigree is obviously better than probably just about everybody in the 8K range. So, I mean, obviously he could pop out, but like Rob was just saying, his approach game is so bad, and usually his irons are his bread and butter. So I'm staying away. But I can see from an ownership perspective, he should be hypothetically speaking like 3% owned, but we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's go to the 7K range where you actually the 6K is bigger than the 7K today this week, which is pretty impressive. Let's talk about some of the guys 7,500 and above. You got Blom, Wise, Putnam, Rogers, Armour, Chappie, Ollie, Cook, Piercy, Potter, Brian, Dahman, Jones, and Mitchell. Actually, some decent golfers here. Jesse, who are some of the guys you like at 75 and above?
Well, obviously Putnam, staying on that train. Talk about it. Talk about it
on brand.
He made me look like a genius for 1 round last week, and then just I don't know what happened to him. He just leveled off, and he didn't play terrible, but he didn't play very good on Sunday. Shot 2 over. Either way, going back to Putnam. Patrick Rogers, he's been playing pretty good recently. He's made 3 cuts out of 3 tries here. I think he's okay at 7,800. Armour, I'm just curious to see where Armour, if he's chalky, I'll go the other way and just completely fade him. But if he's not going to be chalky, if people are not a lot of buzz around him, then I think he's a great play at 7,700. You can't argue with his recent form. He did miss the cut here last year, but he finished 22nd in 2015, and he's made 5 straight cuts on tour, so obviously playing very well. Ted Potter Jr. has some merit here. He's a past winner. That was 2012. But this year he's played at least this is the first time I remember in the last few years anyways, even considering his name, obviously since he won the AT&T Pro-Am this year. He's had kind of an up and down year, but finished 23rd last week, so I think he's all right at 7,600, and he should be decently low owned. Those are my 4 in this area. I mean, there's obviously some others there, so I'll let you guys harp on them if you want to.
What do you got here, Rob?
Yeah, I think those guys are pretty much on board. I mean, Armour, for me, he gained almost 4 strokes putting last week, which is not what he does. His approach game was really, really good on top of that. But I think you're right. It's more of an ownership there. Scott Piercy, who had a really good 2 days at the U.S. Open, I can never figure out. Every time I play him, everything shits the bed, including his irons. But then when I don't play him, he has a good iron game, 7,600. And, you know, Kevin Chappell at 7,700. I will never be able to figure this guy out. Something happened. I know he got hurt earlier in the middle of the year, but he made the cut at the Open, which was surprising enough. For a guy that has won on tour in 7,700 range at this course, and he has relatively decent course history. He's made the cut 4 straight times he's been here. I think he's probably worth a shot. I'm not going to touch him anywhere near in cash, obviously, but GPP wise, like you were talking about Kisner and pedigrees, like Chappell can win, and he's got to go for it. You haven't seen him in a while, so maybe he's getting healthier. I don't know.
Yeah, Chappie's one of those really good ball strikers. So I totally, when we keep talking, get to par 4 scoring, Chappie can do some damage there. So I don't hate that at all. I'm with you on Blom and Armour and Putnam. Those are 3 I like that's above 75. The only other guy that wasn't mentioned so far was Wesley Bryan. He's quietly put together 4 straight cuts, some flashy at T12 2 starts ago, some not so much. First time playing here, but if it's a course where you compete the driver in the bag, Wesley can contend. It's not like a must play. I'd probably rather play those 3 I already mentioned, or even maybe you piqued my interest with Chappie to go look a little more into that one. But Bryan is a guy who's in really good form right now that'll go overlooked in this field, so keep him in mind. All right, let's go below 7,500, where I actually have a lot more than I had up top. Jesse, give us something like in 7,400 to 7,000.
Yeah, this range isn't terrible, especially like considering the actual field. Few plays. Brandon Hagee, I think, is very interesting. He's pretty hot in my model. He finished 18th here last year. He's been playing on the web.com tour for his last couple starts, and before that, I'm not showing that he played in the PGA since November. But he finished second in the Wichita injury. Oh, he's come off injury?
Yeah, he had a wrist injury.
Gotcha. I think he's interesting because of that. I mean, he's, like I said, he's coming off the second on the web.com. Abraham Answer obviously is playable. He played pretty well last week and did not get a price hike at all. Well, he did get a price hike. He was 6,600 last week, 73 this week. Finished 4th, of course. Jaeger is another guy who we talked about at the beginning of the year. And he's so hit and miss, but I think he's a good GPP play just because he finished 13th last week. And you just never know with him. I mean, he could, especially on short courses, I think he does well. CT Pan's playable again. Tyler Duncan, Corey Connors. Bronson Burgoon is another guy who I actually mentioned last week. And he kind of came out of nowhere and finished 6th. And he was actually on the perfect lineup, which I didn't mention earlier when I was talking about the fan share recap, but he scored a lot of DraftKings points last week. He scored 91 DraftKings points and finished 6th in the tournament. So he's interesting if you want to take a dart on him. But I'd probably rather play Connors or Duncan myself. But Burgoon, I mean, he could back it up.
Hey, do you guys know who else just came back from a wrist injury and won a big tournament?
Brooks Koepka.
Thank you. I was just saying, you're talking about Hagee. I just want to throw that out there. So it's possible. But Rob, who do you like in the 7,400 and below?
Yeah, definitely on Hagee. He definitely popped in a bunch of the models that I was looking at. Is it Nick Watney time yet again or not?
Yep, I've been on him like every week, so keep coming.
No, he faded so bad for the last couple of weeks. He made the cut last week, which was nice, but 7,300, he'd also be worth a play. Duncan, for sure, I think. After he made the cut last week, he was definitely a sweat guy for a while, but I think he's still young enough that people aren't going to be on him as much. And then Brandon Harkins again, he's hitting long irons well, 7,100. He's 14th in the field in the tee to green. And I think for, the rest of the guys down here, distance wise, he destroys all of them. So he's definitely going to be a guy off the tee where he can kind of own this course.
Yeah, I agree with all those. JJ Spawn's another interesting one to keep an eye on. A couple back-to-back really good weeks. Finished T29 here last year. I like the CT Pan play. Nick Watney, I'll go back to that well at 7,300. He was tilting like no other last weekend as he birdied 18 to make the cut. And then all weekend he'd like birdie a few holes, then double bogey, and then birdie another, and then double bogey. It was just, fun to get a couple points a day from him, I guess. After that, though, some interesting plays could be like a Lingmerth at 7,200. 4 or 4 cuts made here, including 2 top 10s coming in after back-to-back made cuts, including a T19. JT Poston's another guy that's playing really well. He missed a cut 2 starts ago, but prior to that, T18, T20, T26 coming off a T27 last weekend. $7,200 with Poston. You mentioned Tyler Duncan. I mentioned Brandon Harkins and Corey Connors. I like all those. This low sevens, I'm usually not a stars and scrub guy, but I can make it work. Ben Crane, 833. Ben Crane's another one I wouldn't hate. He T13 last weekend. He has 3 top 13 or betters in his 3 of his last 5 events. So someone to keep in mind. And then Jimmy Hahn, he's made 3 straight cuts. He's 4 for 4 on cuts made here. T6 in 2015. So he's another guy at 7,100. There's a lot to like in this lower range. If you like kind of wading through the trash, there is. Unlike other weeks, there's actual stuff here you can play with and make it work. Let's go to the 6K range where there's a couple I gave up after a while because it got just painful to look at. But, Rob, give us some of the guys in the 6K you're looking at.
Yeah, I would throw Fabian Gomez up there, 6,900. He made the cut last week. He actually played pretty decent, too, the weekend before, at the 19th at the Travelers. Actually made 5 straight cuts going back to the Wells Fargo. Approach game's pretty solid. Robert Garrigus is actually number 1 tee to green for me on these types of courses where it's easy drivable holes. Actually figured out approach game. At the St. Jude, he gained 11 strokes on his approach and still only came in 18th. That's how good of a putter he isn't. Who else do I have? Garrigus. Vaughn Taylor at 6,700. He just seems to keep making cuts. And then 2 guys that have won events that are way down here at 6,700, Hudson Swafford and Patton Kazire. Swafford, for me, he actually hits long irons very, very well. And last week he gained on his – or at the Byron Nelson, he actually was gaining on his approach for the first time pretty much in like 3 months. He would be a guy I would look at as a guy – if he's playing well, tee to green at 6,700 is definitely worth a dart.
Don't hate it. What about you, Jesse?
That's crazy price for Patton Kazire. I mean, the dude won twice this year. In this PGA Tour year, he won 2 times. I think he's probably still top 10, and at least I would think he's close, maybe top 20 in FedEx Cup points just because he's won twice. But I don't know what's happened to him. It's like a Gary Woodland type of nosedive there. For him, but I don't mind that at all. And Swafford, I'm always a big Swafford fan, doesn't matter. But Sam Ryder for me at 6,800 probably my top play down here. 48th last week, 26th the week before. He's hitting a lot of greens. John Peterson is interesting because he's on the medical exemption. He has to make like $68,000 this week in order to get some other kind of exemption or whatever, or get his car back or whatever it is. So he's got to make the cut. And he has to, top 30 or so probably. So he's interesting to me. Vaughn Taylor, I agree with that. Other than that, I don't know. I am a big fan, though, of Sam Ryder this week. I think that price is a little low on him, just given the field and the guys around him. But Garrigus, I guess, is maybe playable too. He played pretty well last week. You got Bubba?
Yeah, I like the Fabian Gomez call at $6,900. That's the guy I'm looking at. Like you said, made 5 straight cuts. Vaughn Taylor, I really, really like coming to this week. He's a cut machine. Like we talked about, he's made 4 straight cuts, T20 or better, 2 of those. He's got bad form here, though, 0 for 4 on tournaments at this course. Another one you can look at, my buddy had a really good week last week and it kind of fell off towards the end, finished T64. There was one time when he was standing up top there. Johnny Huh at $6,800.
He was. I remember that.
He was riding up that leaderboard, but then he fell apart like he tends to do. But he makes cuts. And that's what we want down here in this lower range. We talk about it all the time. Just make cuts. So Taylor, Gomez, Hunt, and you can maybe look even at a Bazzelli if you want. He's made 4 straight cuts on tour at $6,900. All right, let's talk about some more precise calls here. Let's talk about our punts. Give me 2 guys you're punting with this week, Rob.
Yeah, I would definitely say Gomez at 6,900, and then HV3 at 7K. I think he has the game to go nuts, but he always just seems to have one horrible round, and hopefully that's on a Sunday or a Saturday where I don't see it before he makes the cut. But who knows?
Okay, what about you, Jesse?
Definitely same rider, but other than that, another guy who I didn't mention before is Chase Seifert at 7,000. He's a guy who Monday qualified for Travelers Championship, ended up finishing 9th. And, if this was the next week after, I would maybe be on the fade train for him just because more people would remember. Most people aren't going to remember that. So I like him quite a bit at that, at that price. I think he'll go under-owned and overlooked, and 7,000 is not bad.
Yeah, Von Taylor's probably my favorite punt at $6,700. Sprinkle in some Johnny Hood if you need to, but Von Taylor would be my guy if you just need one down below. Let's talk bus for the week. Give us a high price guy and kind of an $8,000 or $9,000 guy, Rob.
I'm going to go Ryan Moore. Okay. I just don't think I've never understood Ryan Moore. I don't know. But you're right, Bubba. He's so good from tee to green. It's so frustrating. Like, he's not in the same breath with the way he putts. But for 8,900, the rest of the 8Ks, like, there's so many other pivots from him, and he was so chalky last week. I think he was 16%. He probably won't be close to that this week, but like almost 25% in cash last week, and he bombed. So if he didn't get 6 or 6 through last week, he was probably the reason why. But I'm going to fade him again.
What about you, Jesse?
Man, it's tough. But I go Jimmy Walker or Webb.
I have written down Webb Simpson and Jimmy Walker. Those are those.
Like, Webb's been all right ever since he won the Players. But, I mean, when I say all right, he's missed 2 cuts he shouldn't have missed. Travelers, Fort Worth, and then finished 10th at the freaking U.S. Open. So, I don't know, man. I can never get him right.
All right, let's talk about some core players. Who's your core, Rob? Give me 2 or 3 guys.
It'll definitely be Keegs. Probably have CH3, and I want a guy in the 7K range, but I really haven't found that person yet. So I'd probably just go low 8s again, and I'll throw in Brian Gay.
What about you, Jesse?
You said core, right?
Yeah, core.
Definitely Putnam and Neiman.
I like that. Yeah, my 2 for now is going to be CH3 and Gay, and then I'll kind of there's a handful of guys I really like. I'm going to dig in more in that 8K range to kind of go around there, but definitely CH3 and Brian Gay will be 2 guys I'll be building a lot around. All right, let's pick our winners for the week. Rob, who do you have winning this event?
Yeah, I got Russ Henley. He's 20-1 right now. I feel like his game's just on fire at this point. He's due.
Pick one long shot.
One long shot, I would say, if you're looking guys that's still hot, Ryan Armour, 70-1, might as well. I think, might as well.
What about you, Jesse?
I forgot to. I didn't mention. Did I mention Putnam in my core? Because he's going to be in my core.
Yes, you did. Yeah, we know we already knew he was in your core.
Yeah, I just spaced out completely. So Putnam down low, Neiman up top. It's cut and dry for me this week. Lock them in, move on, get your other 4.
All right, I like Russ up top, just like you, Rob. I'm on board on the Russ train, and then I'm going back to the well. I'm going Brian Gay, and I'm thinking if he gets through this week, so we'll ride that train a little bit longer. All right, that wraps us up for the week. Any final words, gentlemen? No, nothing.
Another good Euro Tour event too this week. French Open was good, so it's a good tournament in our league.
You guys got any takes on the Irish Open? Rory McIlroy kind of letting people come and visit and see what's going on.
Duty free, right? Yeah,
exactly.
I'm kind of disappointed that he's giving it up next year. I think McGinley's taking it over because I know I went to Ireland last year, and kind of what he's done for Northern Ireland and bringing that back up there has really kind of rejuvenated the game. But McGinley's actually taken it to a course that I played, which I'm kind of excited about. But it should be a good tournament. A lot of big guys keep going over there. They're getting ready for the British. So,
you got any takes on it, Jesse?
I don't, man. I'm just glad that we're only 2 weeks away from a major and we can get away from these trash golf tournaments for a week.
We got the 5th major next week. John Deere. Can't.
But Jesse, think about it this week. You're another week closer to Barbasol.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll wrap us up. Check out Rob on Twitter at alldayevery365. Jesse's at DFS Golf Gods. I am at BDentric. The podcast is at Always Press DFS. Go give us a rate and review. We much appreciate it. Good luck on those that are still waiting for emails on your Masters tickets. Let us know if you got some. Share the news and rub it in the face of the ones that didn't get them. So, but let us know. We're curious. But good luck this week. This was the military tribute at the Greenbrier 2018 preview. Catch you guys later.